Life often feels loud not because it truly is, but because our attention is constantly being pulled in too many directions at once. Notifications, responsibilities, expectations, and unspoken pressures stack on top of each other until the mind rarely experiences silence. In that constant movement, the idea of pausing can feel uncomfortable or even irresponsible. Yet the moment you choose to stop, even briefly, something important happens. The nervous system begins to settle. The mental noise softens. You step out of automatic reaction and return to conscious awareness. This pause is not an escape from life, it is a return to yourself. When everything feels urgent, the mind learns to stay in survival mode. Thoughts race ahead to what could go wrong, what must be done next, or what has already been mishandled. In this state, clarity becomes difficult because the brain is focused on speed, not understanding. A single intentional minute interrupts that pattern. It signals safety to the body. It reminds the mind that not everything needs to be solved immediately. This shift alone can reduce overwhelm more effectively than hours of forced productivity. Pausing does not mean stopping progress. In fact, it often restores it. When you slow down, you create space to notice what truly matters versus what simply demands attention. Many people move quickly but feel stuck because their actions are driven by pressure rather than purpose. A pause brings alignment. It allows thoughts, emotions, and intentions to move in the same direction instead of competing with each other. From this place, even small actions feel grounded and meaningful. The symbolism of Archangel Michael in this moment represents inner authority and protection, not external rescue. Protection here means feeling safe enough to stop running from your own thoughts. It means trusting that you can sit with yourself without everything falling apart. This kind of protection is quiet and steady. It does not rush. It does not threaten. It simply stands firm, reminding you that you are capable of holding your own awareness without being overwhelmed by it. In the pause, you may notice tension you will carry unconsciously. Tight shoulders, shallow breathing, a clenched jaw. These are signs of constant alertness. When you stop, even for 1 minute, the body begins to release what it no longer needs to hold. This physical release often brings emotional clarity with it. You may not name it immediately, but you feel lighter, more present, more in control of your responses. Many people fear pausing because silence can bring up thoughts they have avoided. But avoidance keeps those thoughts powerful. Awareness softens them. When you give yourself permission to pause, you are not inviting chaos, you are inviting honesty. And honesty, even when uncomfortable, is far less draining than constant suppression. The pause allows emotions to move through rather than stay trapped. 1 minute may seem insignificant compared to the scale of life's challenges, but change does not always begin with big actions. It often begins with a shift in state. When your inner state changes, your perception changes. Problems that felt overwhelming may not disappear, but they become more manageable. You begin to respond instead of react. You choose instead of rush. That is the power of pausing. This pause also challenges the belief that worth is tied to constant motion. Many people feel guilty when they stop, as if rest or stillness equals laziness. In reality, clarity requires space. Just as a mirror cannot reflect clearly when it is constantly shaken, the mind cannot see clearly when it is constantly stimulated. The pause steadies the mirror. During this minute, nothing needs to be fixed. There is no task to complete. The goal is not to achieve calm, but to allow it. You are simply noticing what is already present beneath the noise. Often, beneath stress and urgency, there is a quiet sense of resilience. Knowing that you have handled difficult moments before and can handle what comes next. When life feels loud, it is often because you have been listening to everything except yourself. The pause redirects attention inward without isolating you from the world. It strengthens your ability to re-engage with life from a grounded place. From here, decisions feel less reactive, boundaries feel clearer, energy is used more intentionally. This 1 minute is not about stopping life. It is about stopping the unnecessary struggle against it. When you pause, you remember that you are not behind, broken, or failing. You are simply human, needing moments of stillness to recalibrate. That remembrance alone can shift the entire direction of your day, your choices, and your sense of control. Protection is often misunderstood as something external, dramatic, or forceful. Many imagine it as a shield against events, people, or circumstances, as if safety comes from controlling what happens outside of us. In reality, the most powerful form of protection is internal. It is the ability to remain stable within yourself even when life feels unpredictable. Inner stability does not prevent challenges from occurring, but it changes how deeply they disturb you. When you are grounded inside, external noise loses much of its power. Inner protection begins with emotional steadiness. This does not mean suppressing feelings or pretending everything is fine. It means allowing emotions to arise without letting them take control of your behavior or self-image. When fear appears, inner stability allows you to acknowledge it without panic. When anger surfaces, it allows you to feel it without becoming destructive. This kind of protection creates space between stimulus and response, giving you freedom of choice rather than automatic reaction. The symbolic presence of Archangel Michael in this context represents strength that does not need aggression. It is calm authority rather than dominance. Protection here is not about fighting the world, but about standing firmly within it. When you are internally stable, you are less easily manipulated by pressure, guilt, or urgency. You begin to recognize when something truly requires your energy and when it does not. This discernment is a form of protection many people overlook. Mental protection is another essential layer of inner stability. The mind is constantly interpreting, predicting, and replaying experiences. Without awareness, it can easily spiral into worst-case scenarios or self-criticism. Inner stability allows you to observe thoughts without believing every one of them. You begin to see that a thought is an event in the mind, not a command or a fact. This realization alone can significantly reduce anxiety and stress. Many people feel unprotected because they believe they must always be on guard. This constant vigilance actually weakens inner stability by keeping the nervous system in a heightened state. True protection comes from knowing when to relax and when to engage. It is the confidence that you can handle challenges as they arise rather than trying to anticipate and control everything in advance. This trust in your own resilience is deeply stabilizing. Emotional boundaries are a vital part of this protection. Inner stability helps you recognize where you end and others begin. You can care without carrying. You can listen without absorbing. You can support without sacrificing yourself. When boundaries are clear, relationships become less draining and more authentic. You stop feeling responsible for managing everyone else's emotions, which frees up energy for your own well-being. Inner protection also involves self-trust. When you trust yourself, you are less dependent on constant reassurance or approval. You are able to make decisions even when outcomes are uncertain. This does not eliminate doubt, but it prevents doubt from paralyzing you. Self-trust grows through small acts of honoring your needs, listening to your intuition, and respecting your limits. Each time you do, your inner stability strengthens. In moments of stress, inner protection shows up as presence. Instead of mentally escaping into distraction or worry, you stay connected to your breath, your body, and the present moment. This presence anchors you. It reminds you that right now, in this moment, you are safe enough to breathe, to observe, to choose. From this place, challenges feel less overwhelming because you are meeting them one moment at a time. Another aspect of inner stability is releasing the need to control outcomes. Control often disguises itself as protection, but it usually comes from fear. When you believe that everything must go a certain way for you to be okay, your sense of safety becomes fragile. Inner protection, on the other hand, is flexible. It allows life to unfold while maintaining your center. You adapt rather than resist, which conserves energy and reduces suffering. Inner protection also means being honest with yourself. Avoiding truth weakens stability because it creates internal conflict. When you acknowledge what you feel, what you want, and what you need, even when it's uncomfortable, you create coherence within yourself. This coherence feels like strength because there is less internal tension pulling you in different directions. Over time, cultivating inner stability changes how you move through the world. You become less reactive, more discerning, and more at ease with uncertainty. Situations that once felt threatening may still be challenging, but they no longer shake your sense of self as deeply. You carry your protection with you, not as armor but as balance. And from that balance, clarity, confidence, and calm strength naturally emerge. Much of what keeps people feeling stuck is not their circumstances, but the patterns running quietly beneath their awareness. Thoughts repeat themselves, reactions happen automatically, and emotions follow familiar loops. Over time, these patterns become so normal that they feel like personality rather than habit. 1 minute of conscious awareness has the power to interrupt this cycle, not by force, but by observation. The moment you notice a pattern instead of being inside it, its grip begins to loosen. Mental patterns are built through repetition. The mind learns what to expect based on past experiences, and it tries to protect you by predicting outcomes. While this can be helpful, it often leads to unnecessary fear, doubt, and overthinking. When the mind is left unchecked, it replays old worries, anticipates problems that may never occur, and clings to familiar narratives about who you are and what you are capable of. These narratives can quietly shape your choices without you realizing it. A single intentional minute creates a break in this momentum. When you pause and bring attention to the present moment, the mind no longer has fuel to continue its habitual loops. It cannot replay the past or rehearse the future with the same intensity when awareness is anchored in now. This interruption is subtle but powerful. It shows you that thoughts are not permanent states, they are passing events. In this minute, you may notice how quickly the mind tries to pull you back into thinking. You might feel restless, distracted, or impatient. This is not failure. It is evidence of how strong the patterns are. Awareness does not eliminate them instantly, but it reveals them. And what is revealed can change. The simple act of noticing a thought without engaging with it weakens its automatic influence. Many people believe change requires intense effort or dramatic action. In reality, lasting change often begins with small shifts in awareness. When you break a mental pattern even briefly, you create a new reference point. The mind learns that it is possible to pause, to observe, to choose differently. Over time, these small interruptions add up, gradually reshaping how you respond to stress, uncertainty, and challenge. The symbolism of Archangel Michael in this context represents clarity that cuts through mental noise, not by fighting thoughts, but by distinguishing what is useful from what is habitual. Clarity allows you to see when a thought is based on reality and when it is simply an old pattern repeating itself. This discernment is essential for breaking cycles of overthinking and self-doubt. One common pattern is the tendency to catastrophize. The mind jumps to worst-case scenarios as a way to feel prepared. In the pause, you may notice this tendency and realize that preparation has turned into unnecessary suffering. Awareness does not deny the possibility of difficulty, but it prevents you from living it repeatedly in your imagination. This alone can bring a sense of relief and control. Another pattern is self-judgment. Many people carry an inner voice that criticizes, compares, or minimizes their efforts. In the pause, you may hear this voice more clearly than usual. Instead of believing it automatically, you can observe it as a conditioned response. This observation creates distance. The voice may still speak, but it no longer defines you. You begin to see that you are the one listening, not the voice itself. Breaking patterns also involves the body. Mental habits are often reinforced by physical tension. Shallow breathing, tight muscles, and restlessness keep the nervous system activated. When you pause and breathe consciously, you send a signal of safety to the body. This physical shift supports mental change. The mind becomes less reactive when the body feels calm. The power of 1 minute lies in its accessibility. You do not need special conditions or extended time. You can pause anywhere at any moment. This makes pattern interruption practical rather than idealistic. It teaches you that you are not trapped by your habits. You have the ability to step out of them, even briefly. As you practice this pause, you may begin to recognize patterns more quickly. You catch yourself before spiraling. You notice tension before it escalates. You become aware of choices before acting automatically. This growing awareness gives you more freedom. You are no longer living entirely on autopilot. Breaking old mental patterns does not mean erasing them. It means reducing their control over you. They may still arise, but they no longer run the show. Each pause strengthens your capacity to respond with intention rather than habit. Over time, this changes how you experience challenges, relationships, and yourself. In this way, 1 minute becomes more than a pause. It becomes a reset. Not because it fixes everything, but because it reminds you that you are not your patterns. You are the awareness capable of observing them, interrupting them, and choosing something new. Confusion often feels overwhelming, not because there are no answers, but because too many voices are speaking at once. Thoughts, opinions, expectations, and fears compete for attention, creating mental noise that makes even simple decisions feel heavy. In this state, clarity is not absent, it is buried. Cutting through confusion does not require adding more information. It requires removing what is unnecessary so that what matters can come into focus. Inner clarity begins with recognizing the difference between urgency and importance. Urgency is loud, demanding immediate action and emotional reaction. Importance is quiet, steady, and aligned with your values. When the mind is overwhelmed, urgency often takes control, pulling attention toward whatever feels most pressing rather than what is most meaningful. A pause allows you to step back and observe this dynamic. You begin to see that not everything demanding your attention deserves it. The symbolic strength associated with Archangel Michael represents discernment rather than force. Discernment is the ability to separate truth from noise without aggression. It is a calm, focused awareness that knows where to direct energy. When you embody this quality, you stop reacting to every stimulus. You choose what to engage with based on clarity rather than pressure. This choice is what restores a sense of control. Confusion often arises when the mind tries to solve everything at once. Problems blend together, creating a sense of chaos. Clarity, on the other hand, works one layer at a time. In the pause, you can gently ask yourself what truly needs attention right now, not tomorrow, not next month, just now. This simple question narrows focus and reduces overwhelm. Emotional clarity is equally important. Strong emotions can cloud judgment when they are unacknowledged. Fear, frustration, or disappointment may be driving confusion without being recognized. When you pause and allow these emotions to be present without resistance, they lose their intensity. You are then able to see the situation more clearly because you are no longer fighting your own inner experience. Another source of confusion is conflicting identities. You may feel pulled between who you think you should be and who you actually are. External expectations often amplify this conflict. Clarity emerges when you reconnect with your authentic values rather than external approval. In the pause, you can sense what feels aligned versus what feels forced. This felt sense is often more reliable than overanalysis. Mental clarity also improves when you let go of the need for perfect answers. Perfectionism keeps the mind stuck, waiting for certainty before acting. In reality, clarity often comes through movement, not before it. The pause helps you identify the next right step rather than the entire path. This reduces pressure and restores momentum. The act of cutting through confusion does not involve suppressing thoughts. It involves organizing them. When you observe thoughts without judgment, patterns become visible. You notice which thoughts are repetitive, which are fear-based, and which are genuinely informative. This awareness allows you to prioritize effectively. Physical grounding supports mental clarity. When the body feels stable, the mind follows. Simple awareness of posture, breath, or contact with the ground can anchor attention. This grounding reduces mental scatter and brings focus back to the present moment. From here, decisions feel less overwhelming because you are not mentally everywhere at once. Clarity is also strengthened by boundaries. When you limit how much information, opinion, or stimulation you take in, the mind has space to process. Constant input creates confusion by preventing integration. The pause acts as a boundary, temporarily closing the door to external noise so internal understanding can surface. As confusion clears, confidence often follows. This confidence is not loud or aggressive. It is quiet assurance rooted in understanding. You may not feel certain about everything, but you feel capable of navigating uncertainty. This sense of capability reduces anxiety and supports effective action. Over time, practicing this kind of clarity builds trust in your inner guidance. You learn that answers emerge when you create space for them. You stop chasing clarity through overthinking and start allowing it through presence. What once felt overwhelming becomes manageable, not because life is simpler, but because your relationship to it is clearer. Cutting through confusion is ultimately about alignment. When your thoughts, emotions, and values are in harmony, decisions feel natural rather than forced. The pause restores this harmony. It reminds you that clarity is not something you must search for endlessly. It is something that reveals itself when the noise quiets and your attention returns to what truly matters. Much of the pressure people feel in daily life comes from unspoken belief that they must always be moving, achieving, or proving something to be worthy. This belief creates an internal urgency that rarely rests, even when there is no real deadline. Over time, this constant push leads to exhaustion, self-doubt, and a sense of never quite being enough. Releasing the need to rush or prove yourself is not about lowering standards or giving up on growth. It is about shifting from force to alignment. Rushing often feels productive, but it is frequently driven by fear rather than purpose. Fear of falling behind, fear of being judged, fear of missing opportunities. When fear leads, actions become reactive. Decisions are made quickly to escape discomfort rather than to move toward what truly matters. In the pause, you may notice how much of your urgency is fueled by these fears. Awareness allows you to question whether speed is actually serving you. The need to prove yourself often originates from external comparison. When worth is measured against others, there is no finish line. Someone will always appear more successful, more confident, or more accomplished. This comparison keeps the nervous system in a state of alert, constantly scanning for validation. Letting go of this need does not mean ignoring feedback or growth. It means redefining success on your own terms rather than borrowing someone else's standards. Symbolically, the presence of Archangel Michael in this keynote represents dignity and inner authority. Inner authority does not rush. It does not beg for approval. It stands calmly in self-respect. When you connect with this quality, you begin to act from a place of choice rather than compulsion. You do what aligns with your values, not what temporarily quiets insecurity. Releasing urgency also involves trusting timing. Many people push themselves because they believe that if they slow down, opportunities will disappear. This belief creates constant tension. In reality, clarity often improves timing. When you are present and grounded, you are more likely to recognize opportunities when they truly arise. You respond effectively instead of forcing outcomes prematurely. The body often reveals the cost of rushing. Tight muscles, shallow breathing, fatigue, and irritability are common signs. When you slow down intentionally, the body begins to relax, sending signals of safety to the nervous system. This physical shift supports emotional calm. From here, decisions feel less pressured and more thoughtful. Proving yourself also affects relationships. When actions are driven by the need for validation, boundaries blur. You may overcommit, avoid saying no, or take on responsibilities that drain you. Releasing this pattern allows for healthier interactions. You engage authentically rather than performatively. You offer your presence without sacrificing your well-being. Letting go of rushing does not mean becoming passive. It means becoming deliberate. You still take action, but your actions are informed by clarity rather than anxiety. This shift often leads to better results because energy is used more efficiently. Focus replaces frantic effort. Self-worth plays a central role in this process. When worth is conditional based on achievement or approval, there is constant pressure to prove value. When worth is recognized as inherent, effort becomes an expression of growth rather than a demand for validation. This recognition softens the inner critic and creates space for self-compassion. In the pause, you may notice resistance to slowing down. Thoughts like "I don't have time" or "I'll fall behind" may arise. These thoughts reveal how deeply urgency has been conditioned. Observing them without judgment is the first step toward change. You do not need to eliminate urgency completely. You simply need to prevent it from controlling you. Over time, practicing this release builds trust in yourself. You learn that you can move forward without constant pressure. You discover that rest does not erase progress, it supports it. You begin to measure success not by speed but by alignment and sustainability. As the need to rush fades, presence increases. You become more engaged with what you are doing rather than preoccupied with what comes next. This presence enhances creativity, focus, and satisfaction. Tasks feel less draining because you are not fighting yourself internally. Releasing the need to prove yourself is ultimately an act of self-respect. It affirms that you are allowed to grow at your own pace, guided by clarity rather than fear. When you move from this place, progress feels steadier, more meaningful, and far less exhausting. Within the constant movement of daily life, the quiet voice within is often the first thing to be ignored. It does not compete with noise, urgency, or external opinions. It does not shout or demand attention. Instead, it speaks softly, patiently, waiting for moments of stillness to be heard. Trusting this quiet voice is not about abandoning logic or responsibility. It is about reconnecting with an inner sense of knowing that exists beneath fear, pressure, and overthinking. Many people struggle to trust this inner voice because they have been taught to prioritize external validation. Advice, approval, and comparison slowly replace self-trust. Over time, decisions begin to feel confusing, not because the answers are unavailable, but because they are drowned out by too many influences. The pause creates space where this inner guidance can surface without interference. In that space, clarity feels less forced and more natural. The quiet voice within often communicates through subtle sensations rather than clear sentences. It may show up as a sense of ease or discomfort, expansion or contraction, calm or tension. These signals are easy to overlook when the mind is busy analyzing every possibility. When you slow down, you become more sensitive to these cues. You begin to notice what feels aligned and what feels draining, even before you can logically explain why. Symbolically, Archangel Michael in this keynote represents trust in inner truth rather than external authority. His strength is not about domination, but about standing firmly in what is right without needing approval. This symbolism reminds you that guidance does not always come from outside sources. Often, it comes from your own accumulated experience, values, and intuition working together quietly. Fear is one of the biggest obstacles to trusting this inner voice. Fear tends to be loud and urgent, demanding immediate action or avoidance. The quiet voice, by contrast, feels steady and grounded. Learning to distinguish between the two is essential. Fear pushes, intuition guides. Fear creates pressure, intuition creates clarity. The pause allows you to notice these differences rather than reacting automatically. Another challenge is the desire for certainty. The quiet voice rarely offers guarantees. It does not promise perfect outcomes or eliminate risk. Instead, it offers direction, often one step at a time. Trusting it means accepting uncertainty while remaining grounded. This can feel uncomfortable, especially for those used to planning every detail. Yet growth often requires this kind of trust, where movement happens without complete visibility. Listening to the quiet voice also involves honesty. Sometimes inner guidance points toward choices that challenge comfort zones or require boundaries. It may suggest slowing down when you want to push or letting go when you want to hold on. Ignoring these signals can lead to inner conflict and exhaustion. Honoring them, even gently, builds self-respect and emotional balance. The more you listen, the clearer this voice becomes. Trust is built through experience. Each time you acknowledge an inner signal and act on it, even in small ways, confidence grows. You begin to rely less on constant reassurance and more on your own discernment. This does not isolate you from others. It strengthens your ability to engage authentically without losing yourself. Stillness plays a key role in this process. When the body relaxes and the breath slows, the mind becomes less reactive. In this calmer state, intuition is easier to sense. This is why moments of quiet reflection often bring insight that hours of thinking could not. The pause is not empty, it is receptive. Trusting the quiet voice also means releasing the need to explain everything immediately. Intuitive guidance may not always make sense to others, or even to you at first. This does not make it invalid, it simply means it operates on a level deeper than logic. Over time, clarity often follows action, not the other way around. As you practice listening inwardly, you may notice a growing sense of alignment. Decisions feel less conflicted. Regret diminishes because choices are made with self-awareness rather than pressure. Even when outcomes are challenging, there is a sense of integrity in knowing you acted in accordance with your inner truth. This quiet trust changes how you experience life. You become less reactive to external noise and more anchored in your own center. You stop searching endlessly for permission to move forward. Instead, you move with a calm confidence that comes from within. Trusting the quiet voice is not about becoming passive or detached. It is about becoming attuned. It allows you to navigate complexity with steadiness rather than force. In a world full of opinions and demands, this inner connection becomes a source of strength, clarity, and resilience that remains available whenever you choose to pause and listen. Energy is one of the most precious and often overlooked resources we carry. It is not just physical stamina, but the mental and emotional capacity that shapes how we experience life and respond to challenges. Many people find themselves exhausted not because of what they do, but because of where they invest their attention and emotions. Learning to reclaim personal energy and set boundaries is a foundational practice for living with clarity, balance, and strength. Personal energy is constantly influenced by the environment, relationships, and internal dialogue. Each interaction, thought, or emotional reaction either drains or replenishes it. People who are unaware of these influences often give away energy unconsciously, overextending themselves in relationships, taking on responsibilities that are not theirs, or absorbing stress from the world around them. Over time, this depletion manifests as fatigue, irritability, or even subtle feelings of emptiness. Reclaiming energy begins with awareness of where it is flowing. Setting boundaries is the primary tool for protecting and reclaiming energy. Boundaries are not walls designed to isolate or reject others. They are agreements with yourself about what you will accept and what you will not, about where your attention and emotional labor are available and where they are not. Establishing these boundaries allows you to engage fully with what matters while conserving energy that might otherwise be wasted on unnecessary conflict, overcommitment, or emotional overwhelm. Symbolically, Archangel Michael represents clarity and authority over your personal space. His energy is not aggressive, it is protective. When applied inwardly, it reminds you that you are responsible for your own balance. You do not need to exhaust yourself to meet external expectations, nor do you need to carry the burdens of others at the cost of your own well-being. This symbolic guidance emphasizes discernment in how energy is allocated. Reclaiming energy also involves recognizing internal drains. Negative self-talk, habitual worry, and unproductive mental patterns consume a surprising amount of attention. When you observe these tendencies without judgment, you begin to reclaim the energy that was being tied up in unnecessary mental activity. Awareness alone interrupts habitual drains and allows energy to be redirected toward productive, restorative, or meaningful pursuits. Relationships play a significant role in energy dynamics. Some interactions are energizing, offering mutual support and inspiration. Others are draining, demanding emotional labor without reciprocity. Learning to discern between these types of interactions is crucial. Saying no or limiting engagement with energy-draining situations does not mean you care less. It means you respect your own capacity and well-being. Energy management is a practice of self-honor, not selfishness. Physical practices also support energy reclamation. Rest, mindful breathing, nutrition, and gentle movement create a foundation for emotional and mental resilience. When the body is depleted, the mind becomes reactive and more susceptible to emotional drain. By caring for the physical system, you provide the base from which mental clarity, emotional balance, and intuitive discernment can operate more effectively. Another key aspect is emotional regulation. Strong emotions can be powerful drains if not processed consciously. When anger, anxiety, or frustration arises, simply noticing and allowing them to flow without impulsive reaction reduces energy loss. Emotional energy that is managed consciously becomes fuel rather than a liability. Over time, you become less reactive and more capable of sustaining presence and focus in daily life. Reclaiming energy is also about intentional choice. Each moment presents opportunities to invest in what nourishes or depletes. Even small decisions, how much attention to give a message, whether to engage in a conversation, or whether to pursue a particular task, impact overall energy level. Developing this awareness cultivates a sense of empowerment because energy is a finite resource, and how it is used determines your ability to engage meaningfully with life. The mind also needs rest and clarity to conserve energy. When thoughts are unorganized, anxiety-driven, or scattered, they consume more energy than necessary. Pausing to organize priorities, acknowledge feelings, or simply breathe creates mental space that reduces exhaustion. Awareness acts as a filter, letting you focus only on what truly matters, and in doing so, preserves energy for the actions that align with your purpose. Reclaiming energy and establishing boundaries has profound long-term benefits. Not only does it improve physical and emotional well-being, but it also strengthens relationships, enhances productivity, and increases resilience. When you are energetically balanced, you can engage fully, respond rather than react, and maintain clarity even under pressure. This practice is not about rigidity. Flexibility within boundaries is essential. Life will present demands, unexpected challenges, and responsibilities. Boundaries are guides, not traps. They allow you to navigate these challenges without losing yourself, without giving away energy unconsciously, and without sacrificing inner stability. Over time, reclaiming personal energy becomes a habit. Awareness grows sharper, boundaries are more easily maintained, and the nervous system experiences fewer unnecessary fluctuations. You begin to recognize early signs of drain and take corrective action before exhaustion sets in. This proactive approach transforms energy from something that is lost and regained chaotically into a resource that is intentionally managed and sustained. Ultimately, reclaiming personal energy and setting boundaries is an act of self-respect and empowerment. It acknowledges that your presence, attention, and emotions are valuable. By protecting and directing this energy consciously, you increase your capacity to act with clarity, maintain calm in challenging situations, and engage fully with life. In this way, energy is no longer something that diminishes with interaction. It becomes a foundation for strength, resilience, and authentic living.